Welcome in, everyone. It's the BCR Podcast. We are coming to you on Tuesday night, day after Monday Night Football. We have a whole week of the NFL regular season in the rear view, and we are going to reflect on it. So let's do it. Let's get into it. We are going to make our overreactions or predictions based on what we saw Monday, Sunday, and Thursday. So, gentlemen, what did you think of what you saw this past weekend?
I liked it. It was fun. I'm just glad football's back. It's been too long.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Seemed like all the games kind of started out pretty boring. Every single game finished pretty dang good. It
hmm
was really fun to watch.
Yeah, and I think it has to do with no teams are playing their starters, so it took them a while to get heated up and realize, oh, we're playing a football game.
Which is kind of cool in a way to think that like nobody played their starters, so like everybody is
Fresh.
I don't know if I'd say rusty, but yeah, fresh is a good word because there's typically no injuries. I mean, there's some teams that are running without a couple starters, but for the most part, yeah, everybody was healthy. And now that it's week 2, not everyone is healthy, so we're going to talk about that. All right, so what we're going to do here is we're each going to make 3 predictions, or not necessarily predictions, but we're going to give 3 overreactions from each conference. I'll go first, starting with the National Football Conference, NFC. I will give you my 3 overreactions. So, starting off with my first overreaction, Trey Lance is not the guy in San Francisco.
Ooh.
I like that.
So, obviously, San Francisco threw a bunch of equity into trying to get up to pick number 3 in the 2021 draft. They took Trey Lance, even though they had Jimmy Garoppolo on their roster, and they looked to still be in a good position to go to the Super Bowl. And ultimately, they showed up a game short of the Super Bowl last year. Makes you kind of wonder what would have happened if they would have used that number 3 pick on, I don't know, let's say Kyle Pitts. But
Oh, yep.
so
I don't know.
you can disagree with that, but that's just who I
No, I
thought they
think that
should have went after. But regardless, San Francisco, they've put a lot of resources into trying to make this Trey Lance thing work. They also kept Jimmy Garoppolo around as an insurance policy, and it looks as if they're going to need that insurance policy pretty soon, potentially. So that's my first overreaction. Trey Lance did not look good against Chicago. He is not the guy for the 49ers. So I'll give you my second overreaction. We got a team that's already without a pulse. We're only going into week 2 here, and it's a team from the NFC East. I am declaring the Dallas Cowboys dead after 1 week of football. I was pretty low on Dallas coming into the season, and them losing Dak Prescott doesn't really help their case. So, I don't see any way that the Cowboys can really go on without him. It's 6 to 8 weeks of Cooper Rush or someone else. So basically anybody that's not Dak Prescott. So that's going to be a big issue.
You think they get last?
This is something that I've actually been thinking about. It depends on how long Dak Prescott misses. So Jerry Jones came out and said like 6 to 8 weeks or something like that. And the more I've heard, it sounds like it might actually be more of like a 8 to 10, 10 to 12 week thing. So if Dak Prescott ends up missing more time, then I think, Dallas probably finishes in last. Which will bring me to my third overreaction from week 1. And that is the Minnesota Vikings. Not only do they have Justin Jefferson, who is the best wide receiver in the game.
Watch it. I'm joking.
They are the
What?
best team in the NFC after week 1.
All right.
Smacking down the Packers at home. Justin
Let's
Jefferson
go.
went off. Kirk Cousins looked amazing for once in his life. Offensive line did enough for him to do some Kirky things. And
Kirky
defense
things.
held up really well. And Aaron Rodgers, nobody to throw to, man. There's nothing he could do. So, to recap my 3 overreactions from the NFC before I let you guys give your NFC, Trey Lance is not the guy in San Francisco. The Dallas Cowboys are dead. And the Minnesota Vikings are the best team in the NFC.
Connor,
Love
I love them all. I really like the 49ers one. I mean, you could go either way. I mean, he played in the rain. Yeah, it's no one's favorite condition to play in, other than snow. But yeah, he did not play well.
I just
And
think it's super bizarre. Like, so Justin Fields, he has less of a supporting cast around him.
Indeed.
So why is it that Trey Lance, I mean, the Bears, I think everybody, even Bears fans,
Well,
can agree that the Bears are a lesser team.
yeah.
So,
But Fields also, he's had a lot more experience in playing time than Trey Lance. I mean, not much more, but still a little bit more, like half
yeah.
a season's worth.
Something that kind of, before we move on, something that kind of popped into my head today, I was thinking about it is, so if, let's say Trey Lance, let's say the 49ers don't make the playoffs this year and they decide Trey Lance isn't ready. So when is he ready? Do they hang on to him and try to start again next year with him? Or do they move on completely and let another team try to figure him out?
I think they're gonna keep him. I think they're gonna keep playing him. I mean, I don't think he played horrible. I don't think he played good, but like the best he could. But I still think there's some room to grow. He hasn't played enough to show what he's capable of, and plus it was in the rain, away in Chicago. So I
They
think
might
he
just they
go
might
ahead.
just have to let him fail a little bit and take
That
that.
could be too.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a good possibility.
the thing that is really unfortunate for the 49ers is they're giving him a Ferrari to drive, a Ferrari of a team. And week 1, he crashed the Ferrari right into a brick wall. So,
Yeah, you make a good point there. I mean, it's a running team, and yes, Elijah Mitchell is probably going to be out for a while, but it's almost like it doesn't matter who's playing running back on that team. No matter who's playing
right.
running back, they're still going to be good.
Well, and look at Elijah Mitchell. I mean, he was a 6th-round pick last year,
Yep.
and they just plugged and played him, and he was amazing.
Yeah.
So,
And now they got Jeff Wilson. He didn't get very good stats, but he did his job.
yeah.
I wanted to say another thing about your last overreaction. Am I the only one who's thinking, wow, Kirk looks like he did not change at all? And that's not a bad thing. I'm just saying he was never the problem to begin with. Like, I feel like he looks the exact same and plays the exact same because he hasn't changed. And it's not because of him. It's because of the play calling and the offense.
Yeah, I think scheme has a lot to do with it. So,
Yeah.
if you look at Kirk Cousins' average depth of target when he was faced with pressure, he was throwing the ball 10 yards at a time. Versus if you look at his numbers from last year, I believe the number was 6 yards per attempt when pressure was in his face. So that's a pretty significant difference. Yeah, part of it's play calling and scheme, but then I think also another part of it is he's got a guy in his head telling him, "Hey, throw that ball. Don't worry about if it gets picked off or not because you're good enough to make that throw."
Yeah, I just think he looked super confident in the pocket.
Yeah.
I do think it was a big change for him.
Right.
All right, I will go next to continue off on Connor's last one. I'm gonna say the Packers are completely done running the North.
I like it.
Anything else?
I
Well,
don't think they're done.
I can see it, and here's why. So David Bakhtiari, he's 1 year removed from a season-ending injury.
Okay.
So you would think that would be enough to, make him sit out a whole year. Okay, he's rested up now. He should be good to go. And the Packers were expecting that he would play. Same thing with Elton Jenkins. I mean, I don't think he was out for the entire year last year, but so when you got your two bookends and they're not, performing on the field or not playing at all, I think that's a big issue. And also, they don't have like a clear cut number one receiver. They're hoping that Lazard can step into that role and eventually Christian Watson, but Christian Watson's young and Alan Lazard is like a high end number 3, maybe a number 2 at best.
Yeah.
Should
So-
Oh, go ahead.
For my next one, I think this could change, but the Rams look awful. Like they look awful. And I'm
Yeah.
gonna tell you why.
Okay.
Kevin O'Connell was the savior of that team.
But
It is
Wow.
They
so
look-
basic.
they look like the exact same team, though.
Oh, they look
Like they
awful.
ran similar stuff. They ran similar offense.
Here's
mean,
the
if you
bizarre
count-
thing, though.
If you count Cooper Cup getting targeted every play, the same stuff, then yeah.
Here's the bizarre thing, though, is so Cam Akers didn't really get used at all, so they relied on Darrell Henderson a lot, which was fine. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that can work. But the other issue is that the only people to really get targeted were Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee. And then that one guy, I don't remember his name, but
Skoranek.
yeah, Skoranek. Those were like the only guys to actually get targeted. So like,
There weren't any deep threats at all.
yeah, and now they're actually having to put Tutu Atwell on the field, which in
I mean-
my opinion is a mistake.
Van Jefferson was out. He's usually the guy for that deep threat, but
But
where's
10
Allen Robinson
points.
playing?
10 points at home. The big issue here, in my opinion, is they moved Joseph Noteboom to left tackle to replace Andrew Whitworth. And anybody who watched the game knows that Von Miller took Joseph Noteboom to school. So that's a big issue. And if it doesn't get resolved soon, the Rams are going to have a hard time really running any sort of offense.
All right, for my final one, I'm gonna get some hate for this, but I was saying last week I thought the Giants would be a great football team, and they came out and beat the Titans, and I'm gonna go as far for my overreaction to say they're gonna win the division.
Okay.
I love me some Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of interesting. So I didn't get to see much of the game at all, just some of the highlights. But here's the thing that I think is kind of interesting. According to PFF, their offensive line didn't perform that well. So if you look at their left tackle, Andrew Thomas, he graded a 79.9 out of 100, which is really good. It's borderline elite.
Mm-hmm.
So he played pretty well. But if you go from the left guard over to the right tackle, the other 4 remaining offensive linemen, the highest graded offensive lineman on that team was a 51.3. So I feel like in order for your theory to come true, I think they're going to have to figure out something with the offensive line and make them perform a little bit better. Of course, Brian Dable did a pretty good job of scheming up against the Titans for that first game.
Yeah.
All right, we're moving on to me.
Yep.
So we're gonna do. This is my first overreaction. We're gonna do Bengals or bust. So we all know Bengals was to the Super Bowl last year, or this year, but last time there was an NFL season. Wow, what was it? Joe Burrow had 3 picks, and were they all in the first half?
I don't
Something like
remember if they were all in the first half, but I know.
I know 2 of
I know
them
he
were in
had
the
a
first
lot.
half, but that was, and it was like probably the first couple snaps on offense too. And I just like to say, I know we talked about this a couple episodes ago about how we would not pick the Steelers DBs, but oh my gosh, 3 picks? Come on. Now, besides the picks, he did throw for a lot of yards, and he did get Jamar Chase in the end zone. So I'll give him that, but there needs to be consistency, and I'm hoping that they figure it out. Next, all right, these are 2 overreactions I have in the same game. Is Geno at the casino? Now, what I mean by that is, yeah, he had a good game, 2 touchdowns, and I'm just gonna say this: the Broncos made him look nice, and that's the Broncos. I don't know if any other team's gonna make him look like that. And they were at home, and the crowd was rooting for Geno. But kind of the same scenario. Let's see if Geno Smith's a bust or not in that system. And then my next one is let Russ cook. Nathaniel Hackett, just let Russ take care of the offense. Like he blew the game. There was 40 seconds left on the clock, and they let 20 seconds run down to yeah. And then they finally call a timeout after getting subbed and like, oh, we don't know what we're doing. Like, well, good job. And then they sell for a 64-yard field goal that they don't even make. Then they lose the game.
That's such an issue, though. Like, so you're starting your coaching career off with that kind of a decision.
Mm-hmm.
So first of all,
said too, he's like, "Oh, I guess we shouldn't have done that." They talked to him after the game.
He should have said that. I mean, what else could he say?
So first of all, you lost the game. Second of all, your entire fan base hates you now.
Well, it was his first game. I mean, you gotta learn. You gotta learn somehow. Just let him take care of the offense. He's a veteran quarterback, and he's athletic, and he knows how to run the game.
Right.
He knows what to do. All right, and for my last overreaction, this is technically my 4th, but I count it as my 3rd. Pats have bad stats, and I mean, no one besides Mac Jones went over 100 yards, and that may seem common in some offenses, but they were really spreading out the ball. I mean, this is a very balanced team. I think in the run game and passing game, but in history shown that they're more heavy in the run game. Damian Harris only got 48 yards on 9 attempts. Ramondre Stevenson 8 attempts for 25 yards. I mean, they even split the ball between the 2 running backs and not even 100 yards. And I mean, they got Ty Montgomery in there. Mac Jones even made a rush for 2 yards, or I'm sorry, 2 rushes for 0 yards. My bad. And I mean, even in the air, not a single receiver went over 100 yards. And I think that's a big issue for them, is because they don't have a strong receiving core, a big guy that can make plays like AJ Brown, Justin Jefferson, or Jamar Chase, anyone like that. So, yep. And even Mac Jones, he didn't look too pretty either. 70% completion, yes, but there's the pick and the there was a pick, and he was sacked 2 times, so that wasn't a good game for them.
Yeah, that Patriots offense is an issue, and they announced that Matt Patricia's taking over all the duties for it now. So I just don't get it, man. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Why are they doing this to poor Mac Jones? I mean, this is not going to help him in any way. In fact, it's going to set him further behind the 8 ball when he already didn't have a ton of help with developing already this year. So,
Mm-hmm.
All right, should I get to my AFC?
Yep.
Okay, so my AFC overreactions. Pittsburgh Steelers. I am so sorry. I doubted you, but you went and you took down the defending AFC champions, Cincinnati Bengals. You stormed in there on the road. TJ Watt played the game of his life. He got hurt, which was really unfortunate. But, they did a really good job, and ultimately they ended up winning the game. So my overreaction is the Steelers could win the division this year in the AFC North. And on to the second one. The Kansas City Chiefs are better off without Tyreek Hill. Now, the Kansas City Chiefs totally stuck it to the Arizona Cardinals. They decided to stop scoring at 44 points. They put up 44 points without Tyreek Hill on their team. They had some guys that contributed, and everybody was kind of concerned coming into the year. What are they going to be without Tyreek Hill?
Mhm.
Guess what? They're a better team without him. So that's my overreaction. The Chiefs are still going to run the AFC West. And on to my last prediction, or not really prediction, I guess. A kind of a prediction, yeah. I want to apologize to both of you. You both were right, and I was wrong. The Broncos are the fourth best team in the AFC West.
You got that right.
Yeah.
They just
That's
put on a
right.
circus yesterday,
You got that right.
playing the Seahawks, who quite honestly I had picking on the top 5 coming into the season. Still possible they could.
Yeah.
But the Broncos, my gosh, show some fight. And obviously, Braden, you already touched on the
Mhm.
debacle of the clock management, which Peyton Manning sitting on his couch was losing his mind, trying to call timeout for
Mhm.
Nathaniel Hackett. But man, how do you do that? Let all that time run off the clock.
I don't know.
It's a Mike Zimmer move right there.
Yeah. So with all that being said, my overreactions are Steelers are going to run the AFC North. The Chiefs are better off without Tyreek Hill, and the Broncos are the worst team in the AFC West.
Respect. I think later on in the season, Sky Moore will pick it up and could be their wide receiver 1 by the end of the year, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
I will take you up on that. I think the Broncos are terrible.
I didn't see it coming. It's just so weird.
Wishing it was Peyton Manning V2 and instead it's a continuation of last year, potentially. I mean, I don't
Yeah.
understand the whole thing with Ed Donatel. I mean, I should read more into this, but he left. Now the defense kind of sucks. And the Vikings defense looked amazing.
Yeah, I mean, Denver went from being a defensive team to now, hey, we're bringing in an offensive guy, and Russ is now our guy at quarterback. So
But
this
we
team
can't
should
score.
be able to propel us on offense, but that wasn't the case. I mean, honestly, their defense wasn't awful. I mean, they gave up 17 points, but the penalties were insane. Denver got
Mhm.
penalized so much throughout the game, and a lot of teams were just really sloppy this weekend.
Mm-hmm.
My next one I got Jaguars are the same team they were as they were last year. Their offensive line is so bad. It was painful watching Trevor Lawrence trying to make a throw. I felt bad for him. And keeping it into the same division, Texans are gonna walk away with the division. Thoughts on that, Braden?
Say that again.
The Texans are gonna win the division.
Yeah, right.
I was looking at the schedule. A lot of them are winnable games for them. I mean, they play the Broncos too. That'll be funny.
I think the Broncos sweep them there.
Probably, but it could
we're
be
gonna
a fun
find
game.
out. I think we're gonna find out not only if the Texans are a real team, but if the Broncos are a real team. Because if Denver loses at home to Houston, that's not going to be a good look.
Definitely not. All right. Riley, is that all your reactions?
That's all I got.
All right, I'm gonna move into my NFC because I just did my AFC. My NFC is Baker bites the dust. Didn't turn out like he predicted it to after his comment where he's like, "I'm gonna kick their, you know what?" Didn't happen. It was a close game though. He fought hard. The whole team, the whole Panthers team fought hard, but unfortunately the Browns came back and bit them in the leg. Saints come back and attack. Wow. I'm just gonna say this. At halftime, I thought Atlanta had that game covered.
That's
I
been
did not.
said way too many times.
What's that?
That's been said way too many times. Atlanta has the game at half.
Yes, yeah. But hey, props to Jameis and the Saints. They made a tremendous comeback. And then for my NFC, Justin Fields hits the field and he played tremendous. He had two gloves out there. He's looking like Teddy Bridgewater. But
I
in a
noticed
better,
that.
I would say, a little better version of Teddy and more mobile. But yeah, he played pretty good, especially in the rain. And way to show out at home against the 49ers.
I quickly want to touch on that Saints and Falcons game.
Yeah.
So I was kind of curious. The Falcons were up by quite a bit. I believe it was a couple score game at halftime. So I was just kind of curious. What happened? Why did they give it away? So I went back and watched some of the highlights for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed quite a bit. It looked like the Falcons, they weren't going as far as running prevent defense, but they were running a lot of like cover 4.
Oh, really?
So what looked like
Yeah.
was happening is, for those that don't know, cover 4 is outside corners have deep quarters of the field, and then the two safeties have the inside quarters of the field most of the time. And that's what the Falcons were running. It was pretty vanilla. So you got those 4 guys going deep, and then the middle linebacker is just sitting over the middle. He's got the middle of the field, and then the outside linebackers drop to the flats or a nickel corner, whoever. So what looked like was happening a bunch is the Saints were running a bunch of route concepts that they would get in between the safety and the linebacker. So say the safeties were dropping to maybe 20 yards or so, and then the linebacker would drop to 10 yards.
Mm-hmm.
They would throw it like 15 yards and split it right in between them, and they got a bunch of plays like that.
Huh.
So I thought that was interesting. I mean, it's not, like I said, not quite prevent defense, but it's like a similar concept. They were trying to not let them score. It's
Right.
like it was kind of weird.
Yeah, you gotta play football. You can't sit back and watch it all happen.
Right.
You gotta step up and attack.
All right. So, should we do our clown of the week before we say goodbye?
Indeed. Let's all say our clown of the weeks on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Nathaniel Hackett.
Nathaniel Hackett.
Am I the only one who's got something different?
Oh god, yours is probably like Aaron Rodgers or something.
No, it's not actually.
Go ahead.
Okay, I thought about Nathaniel Hackett because I thought it was pretty obvious.
Yep.
But that's why I decided not to go with something obvious. So I'm going to go with Trent Baalke, general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars. He went out there and spent a bunch of money this offseason. Got Trevor Lawrence a nice right guard. Got him a couple of spendy wide receivers. But what did they do to fix their offensive line the rest of the way besides their right guard? They couldn't keep their hands out of the $5 DVD bin and re-signed Cam Robinson to a 2-year deal. When you got a young quarterback like Trevor Lawrence, who Riley and I discussed, would probably have won that game if it wasn't for him having to run for his life the last drive because Washington knew that he was going to be throwing the ball. So my clown of the week is Trent Baalke, general manager of the Jacksonville Jaguars for failing to address protecting his franchise quarterback, Trevor Lawrence.
Respect.
Not a bad pick. Smart.
I'm going to hit you guys with some news before we go real quick.
Okay.
Chiefs' first-round pick, Trent McDuffie, has been placed on the IR list. TJ Watt is expected to be back in 6 weeks, so that is a good. That's good for me. It's my defensive player of the year pick, it was looking pretty good until he got hurt.
That's good that he's only going to be out for that long versus, like last year we saw Daniil Hunter had the same exact injury and he ended up missing the remainder of the season after like week 7.
Yeah. Dak Prescott, we talked about him. He's hurt. We don't know how long. I saw someplace it could be as much as they thought, or it could be like 8 to 10 weeks. And Kyle Fuller has suffered a torn ACL. Will be out for the season, obviously. And Colts kicker Rodrigo Blankenship has sunk and he is gone.
Adios, Hot Rod.
That one's interesting to me because I read today that the Colts are going to bring in a couple kickers. Now, I don't know if that means that they're bringing them in to try out or if that means that they're going to have 2 on the roster and just see what happens, but that would seem kind of like a waste to me.
Didn't the Vikings do that same thing after the whole who was the kicker that was like good and then bad?
Blair Walsh.
Yeah, Blair Walsh. After the whole Blair Walsh thing, didn't they bring in a bunch of kickers to try out?
They brought in Kai Forbath. They tried him out. He was really good for about a year and a half, and they were like, hey, let's go draft one now. And then that kicker happened to be Daniel Carlson, who is probably one of the best kickers right now in the NFL, kicking for the Raiders because the Vikings released him after he had a bad game.
Oh, boy.
It's so interesting to me with kickers because, like, obviously with Daniel Carlson, he had a bad game and he got cut from the Vikings. So then you got Rodrigo Blankenship. He had a bad game for the Colts and they cut him.
Yeah, but here it's kind of like he wasn't bad, but he was missing like on and off, and it wasn't like game-ending moments really, game-changing moments. It was kind of just like, all right, we're kicking their butt, but we still can't even make a field goal.
What was his long yesterday or Sunday? Sorry,
the one he attempted.
Yeah, like what was his longest kick
That was attempted or that he actually made?
that he made?
Oh, I have no idea.
I'll look it up.
42 yards. He missed that one. I don't know. I saw somebody say he made his longest attempt, but
I think the reason for him being cut is because the Colts expect to win the division. So if it would have been the other way around and that would have been Rodrigo Blankenship shanking kicks for the Texans, I don't think he gets cut.
Definitely not.
But teams like the Colts, I mean, that's what the Vikings did too. They had went to the championship the year before and they decided we need to solve this problem now because otherwise we're not going to make it back to the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, teams hit the panic button.
He made at least a 40-yarder, 40 to 59-yarder, and he missed one too.
One more piece of news that I have. Elijah Mitchell missing at least 2 months with an MCL injury. Tough break for him. But like Braden, you and I had just talked about, 49ers are pretty good at plugging and playing any running back. So
yeah, just a bummer for me because I got him on my fantasy team.
Yeah, that's no fun.
Okay, what do you think they'll put him on the reserve?
If he's gone for 2 months, then yeah.
He is already.
Oh,
Okay.
yes?
Yeah.
Oh.
I don't remember what the timetable is. I know last year it was you had to miss 3 games.
It was 3?
Yeah, last year was.
I thought it was 4.
No, they might have changed it this year. Because last year, they had different rules because they were still going through COVID protocols and stuff.
What about Trey Sermon? They could be using him right now.
Yeah, I heard Trey Sermon's name come up. There was one other guy that I heard that they were going to use. It wasn't
Sermon's on the Eagles now.
Jeff Wilson. It was somebody else. Let me pull up the depth chart really quick.
Is
San Francisco.
Juszczyk still in San Fran?
Yeah.
Okay.
From what I'm seeing, it says 4 weeks. Could be wrong.
So Jeff Wilson, Jordan Mason, Tyron Davis Price. That's the guy that I had heard was going to be utilized too now. So
what
could be
what
an
time
option.
What time of the game did he get hurt? Does anyone know?
I don't know.
They didn't use that guy at all. Yes, I keep saying yesterday. They didn't use him at all in that game.
It says that Mitchell had 6 carries for 41 yards. Man, averaging 6.8 yards a carry. That's a tough break.
Sure is.
Yes, it also was a slop fest. So
Yeah.
All right. Shall we sign off?
Indeed, we shall.
All right.
So I believe tomorrow night, right? We're going to be back tomorrow night with our predictions for the upcoming week. So be sure to check that one out. And to everyone out there who's going to be consuming this episode, please help us to continue to grow our channel. We're on YouTube and Spotify at the BCR Football Cast. So please like, subscribe, comment, share with your friends and family, or whoever else you know that might be wanting to consume some football content. And we'll see you tomorrow with predictions for week 2.